A 17-year-old boy, Michio Kaga, wakes up in a horse stable. Michio realizes that he can visualize the elements of the game, and also remembers that before entering the game he had left some hidden items, among them a sword and a ring. As he leaves the stadium, he hides so as not to be discovered by a group of people passing by. In the distance, some bandits approach and get into a fight with the peasants. Michio evaluates what to do and decides to get into the fight, killing all the bandits with his sword. Then the village chief thanks him for protecting them and offers him more weapons, but Michio says no and only asks for a room to sleep in. Michio thinks the game is too realistic and bored with playing the game. He tries to leave, but he can't. He is then reminded of a warning the game had given him that he would not be able to return to real life. At that moment, the village chief arrives with a bucket of hot water for him to clean himself. When they leave, Michio feels guilty for those people he killed and promises himself to be someone who does good. Later, as he is about to leave the village, the chief arrives with a man who is apparently an infiltrated bandit. He watches him as his card changes from identifying him as a peasant to a slave. The chief gives Michio the cards of the bandits he killed, and explains that he can exchange them for money in the capital, as each of them at a price. Michio sets off for the capital, guided by a peasant who offers him a ride. They arrive at an establishment in the capital where he can change the cards. But first, a woman tells him that she wants to know what power he has. After getting the money, he continues on his way with the peasant, and at one point they pass a scary place, about which the peasant gives him a warning explaining that in that place there are thieves and girls of the night. Later they arrive at another building where slaves are sold and sell the bandit. Michio says goodbye to the farmer after selling the slave, and from that moment on he is alone. But the man who paid them for the slave comes out again to talk to Michio and asks him if he is interested in buying a slave, telling him that there are also women, which catches Michio's attention. While Michio is thinking about his decision, a butler comes out and takes all his attention, which the man explains is a slave of the wolf tribe. That is, she is also a warrior. When Michio learns of the girl's price, he thinks it is too expensive and leaves. But the man tells him that he will wait 5 days. Michio struggles to collect the money, but he still lacks 70,000 coins. At that moment, he remembers that the man told him that on the outskirts of the city there is a labyrinth that if he manages to complete and defeat the monsters that are inside, it will give him a lot of money. Michio buys more weaponry and ventures into the maze challenge. When he arrives, he encounters a group of adventurers with different abilities. Upon entering the maze, a tree-shaped demon appears, but he defeats it while realizing that being in there makes him lose the will to fight. After that, he redeems the reward, but only gets another 273 coins. At night, Michio again goes to the labyrinth, this time using a new teleportation trick that takes him directly there. While he thinks he might not be able to, rock slides leaving a hole through which Michio sneaks and finds a broken sword, and many giant demons which he must face while overcoming the effects of fatigue caused by the maze. When Michio returns to the village, he sees the body of a bandit who went to seek revenge against him for killing his group. Later, Michio thinks about becoming a bounty hunter since the money he is paid is a lot and he wants to buy the wolf girl. For that, he goes to the alley where the farmer told him he should not go, believing that there would be more bandits, but first he passes through a village which causes him to fear because of the state of abandonment in which it is, so he decides to return at night. At night, Michio ventures into the alley with a lamp lent to him by the receptionist of the inn he is staying at. When he arrives, he passes through a dark area where women can be seen through the windows. On the way, a bandit appears and Michio chases him without realizing it, arriving at the village where he was during the day. And there he sees that there are many bandits gathered, so he looks for a plan to attack. Also remembers that the receptionist told him about 2 groups of bandits facing each other. The next day, he goes to the place again and manages to negotiate information with a bandit, who takes him to his room to make the deal, but actually seeks to kill him. Michio knew that would happen, so he kills him and then goes in search of the bosses and kills them, but escapes to the labyrinth when he sees that the other bandits noticed. Michio cut off their hands so he could take their cards, but for a moment he feels bad and hesitates to hand over the cards, because if the other bandits find out he went, they will come after him. Plus it seems that even if he hands over those cards he won't get enough money since it's the last day. When he receives the money, he is told that the bandits had more than one reward, and Michio opens the bag and realizes that there is much more than he expected and that he will be able to buy the slave. When he arrives and buys her, he realizes that Roxanne is sad and she explains that it is because she doubts that he is going to look for her. Michio tells her that from now on they will go to Labyrinth to get money. Roxanne without hesitation tells him that she would love it because she also has a fighting instinct. Michio realizes that Roxanne doesn't have any shoes and gives her his shoes and they magically adjust to her size. while they are buying armaments and shields. Michio tells her that he wants to buy a cloak since the previous one was stained with blood. When they return to the inn, Michio sits on the bed and Roxanne in front of him on the floor, but he tells her that she is free and can do whatever she wants, not to act like a slave anymore. Roxanne replies that she just wants to be with him, and they have a +18 scene that lasted over 10 minutes. The next day, Roxanne explains to Michio that if he wants to add abilities to his weapons, he must find some crystals, of which there are very few. That it also depends on the blacksmith to attach the abilities to the weapons, and as if that were not enough, only the dwarves do it, who are in the habit of stealing the crystals. Once they were both in the labyrinth, Roxanne tracked a demon with her sense of smell. Then she asked Michio for the crystal of a demon she had already defeated, and he told her that he had given it all to the guild. Thus the two of them as a team were getting several objects from the labyrinth. Again at the end, Roxanne tells him that she was previously in another group in which she was marginalized and not listened to. Michio again tells her that she is free and can do what she wants. Then she sits next to him in the bed and he embraces her affectionately without realizing that she is falling in love. Michio gets crystals that absorb magic every time he kills a demon and returns to the labyrinth to defeat demons. Days later, they arrive at a mysterious door that will lead them to fight the demon boss of level 1. Upon death, the boss drops a medicinal leaf and grants Roxanne the title of herbalist. To obtain the same ability, Kaga insists on returning and defeating the boss again. With this ability developed, Michio can craft health potions. One day while Michio and Roxanne are walking through the city, he notices that someone is following them and realizes that it is a bandit who is watching the house where Michio bought Roxanne. They both alert Alan, although he seems very calm. Even so, Roxanne asks Michio to help him and he offers his protection service. At night, while standing guard, Roxanne hears the intruders' alerts. Alan and others then ambushes them. Michio sees the bandit and tries to stop him with experimental magic using an equivalent exchange spell, thus managing to explode an orb of destruction that the bandit was carrying. Alan thanks Michio for protecting his establishment and Michio returns to the inn almost exhausted of magic, then goes to the labyrinth to get more, so they go to level 3. Michio hires a mage to teleport to the Imperial City so that in the future he can teleport with Roxanne. Roxanne and Kaga are looking for a house to rent on the outskirts of Kadar. Thanks to Roxanne's experience points, they find a house near a labyrinth and rent it. They even get a discount as the garden was very neglected, and the previous tenant had built a strange stone room without asking permission. They both rent a house near the labyrinth. While Roxanne prepares it, Michio re-enters the labyrinth and learns that despite the number of explorers in it, no one has ever managed to overcome it. Michio discovers that no one has overcome the 91st floor of the Kurator labyrinth, even though hundreds of groups try to overcome it every day. When fighting the first boss, he is disappointed by how easy it was, and before fighting the second, they decide to return home. As Michio and Roxanne get through the levels, there is one in which they encounter a demon chief that can really hurt them. When they return home, Michio decides that he needs a new member in his group so that Roxanne doesn't get hurt again. Kaga discovers that monster rabbit skins are worth a great deal in tailor shops, so he heads to a dungeon to hunt them. Again in the labyrinth, they witness how the demon chief kills an adventurer who has been for 6 years preparing to defeat him for. That situation makes him reflect that one day it could be him or Roxanne who dies. The next day, when entering the labyrinth and selling another demon, Roxanne sees that he has left his loot a stone of the type used by dwarven blacksmiths to add magical abilities to weapons. Kaga reflects further on death and decides to write a will. In it, he wants to detail that in the event of his death, Roxanne would keep his things and be totally free. Michio decides to buy a dwarf slave, but Alan explains to him that the only one he has is a 16-year-old dwarf, but she failed to acquire the blacksmith skill. Sherry asks Michio to buy her and tells him that she is a level 10 scout. Michio buys her with Roxanne's approval, although Roxanne seems to be a bit jealous actually. Michio decides to have Sherry try to obtain several skills so that she can get her blacksmith skill, but first he equips her with a hammer. While they were having dinner, Roxanne becomes jealous of Sherry when she sees that Kaga was about to serve her dinner first. He notices Roxanne's jealousy, and in the evening he indulges her with another +18 scene. Not content, he forgets that Sherry is underage and does the same. Later he decides to buy 3 more slaves for his group, Miria, Vesta, and Rutina. The end. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and click the bell icon to get new anime recaps.